Welcome to This Week on Career Conversations with Service Express. This week's topic with Lindsay Foley, our Director of Talent Acquisition here at Service Express, is searching for a job in 2020. 2020 is certainly an interesting year, one for the history books for sure, but you can still be looking for a job and a new opportunity during this time. We have hired over 30 people, onboarded them virtually. They're set up and they're doing great things, and many of them have joined us without ever stepping foot in a Service Express office or meeting somebody actually face-to-face in person, all through Zoom. And if you'd have told me we would do this 6 months ago, I'd have said, no way, wouldn't have seen it. And now here we are. We're doing it. And what I find interesting is that they're doing it. They're willing to search for a new opportunity that way and make the decision. So I think there's a lot to learn through this. And so Lindsay has great insight as she leads talent acquisition for us here. And so looking forward to this conversation. Hope it provides you with a ton of talent. And I'd love to hear your feedback. Thanks. What about job search right now during the pandemic, during the stay at home? What's been different? What's been the same? What's been your observations around this, both, for the job search and for us as we've been recruiting during this time?
Yeah, I think so. I mentioned a little bit of this earlier. Unfortunately, some people have found themselves out of work when they weren't anticipating that. So we're very sensitive to that. So you have more job seekers out there right now. So the marketplace has more talented people looking. So that's happening, of course, on some of it due to unfortunate circumstances, but some of it is really people sort of thinking, gosh, I'll be honest, the pandemic has made everybody be a little bit more introspective and sort of think like, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? And what is the kind of company I want to work for? And do I have job security? And we've really just seen people asking different questions than they've ever asked before, more about, more about like business planning and leadership. And not that we don't get some of those questions, but people are like dialing into that, because even if they're not, even if they're still working and they haven't been laid off or anything like that, people are still saying, gosh, I want to work for a company with thoughtful leadership, with people that are visionaries, that we can see are really actually continuing to be innovative and progressive through this time. And so I think a lot of people are starting to think how I was led through the pandemic, and gosh, what I really want in a job is not where I'm at. I think people just have some time to think about that now. So the questions are getting a little bit deeper, a little bit more into like that side of things than just the job and who's my boss going to be. So it's good. It's good questions. I'm impressed with the marketplace. They are not afraid to ask the question.
I've seen that in my 22 years here. I've seen that happen before. It kind of goes in waves. And so when there is I'll say a down economy, now we're obviously in a pandemic and in a really, really unique situation, but back through the financial crisis and even back in the dot-com kind of bust era of, I think that was 2000-ish, around there. My dates start, the further away you get from dates, the more they blend in. But you see people that are really paying attention to the industry that you're in, the market, the leadership, the opportunity. They're really grounded in their job search and really being thoughtful about it. I think during a, robust economy and a tight labor market, like it's been the last 3 years or so, for here, it feels like they're more apt to just, take a flyer. Someone's waving a big comp plan, a big promise of a big comp plan in front of them. I think people are going to find out those are short-lived. Those are good when the going's good, but they're not always there when the going gets tough necessarily. And I think now people are looking for stability in a growing company. I think, for us, as we've always continued to grow, whether it was Y2K, 9/11, the financial crisis, or now we're still recruiting right now during the pandemic and growing. For now, I think that's of interest to people. So it sort of goes in waves that I've seen. And I think we're in that wave now where people are going to be really thoughtful about the type of company that they join.
Absolutely. And I think they're going to ask I say tough questions, and, they're not tough. They're just people are thinking about their job search differently. And to your point, it's less about, not that people don't still want to make a good wage and the competitive salary and all of that good stuff, but it's less about that, the package, right? And it's more about what's the core. Like, what am I getting into when I line myself up with this company? And we talk about all the time, patience, right? And in your job, one in your job search and in your job growth, right? So you've got to think about what's that kind of company that's going to help me get to where I want to be over time, right? We're a growing company. We have those opportunities for you, and really figuring out what makes the most sense from that perspective for a job seeker versus just this job that looks good today. Does that job still look good 5 years from now? So I think people are thinking more like that.
And that job hopping for that overnight success versus why they say plant and grow and go forward. And I think if you do that, ultimately you get farther faster. But you have to have that perspective. In my own career, coming out of college with a teaching degree, and then some of the jobs I had along the way until I found Service Express. I mean, for my age and where I was at in my career, I was pretty behind. But those experiences looking back really added up and built up and gave me the experience I needed for Service Express. And then here, having the opportunity that I have to grow and evolve. And nothing happened overnight here or without challenges for sure, and still doesn't. But yet, sticking with it for 22 years, I've seen, kind of seen my career path really, really take off and do that. And so I think a little bit of patience actually will get you farther, faster. And job hopping, I see people do that job hopping stuff, and then they're in the same position their whole career. They never really can advance. And you see them on LinkedIn and their resumes every 2 or 3 years, boom, 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 on that.
I think to your point, people get stuck with, so I look at myself and I say, oh my gosh, in the 5 years that I've been at Service Express, I've accomplished so much, and it has nothing to do with my title. So it's all about the work. And I think people get so stuck in, well, am I going to be able to be, the vice president within the next 5 years? And 5 years to me still feels like a short time, but I know that 5 years, when you say it out loud, people are kind of like, 5 years, so I'm going to, get to my next, whatever that may be. It's got to be focused on, what am I going to be able to do? What is the work that I'm going to be able to do? Because I've done more at Service Express in the 5 years that I've been at Service Express because of the opportunities we have than I probably did my whole career prior.
Right.
So I think you got to think about that.
And what about during this stay-at-home period, the actual recruiting process? We've hired, gosh, I don't know how many, 20 to 30 or so. I don't know the exact number. People that have never even been to a Service Express location that you've recruited, hired them all through Zoom. They're onboarding now all through Zoom. They're not in the office. What's been that experience like from your perspective and from the candidate's perspective? What's been the challenge, but what's been the sort of neat opportunity in it as well?
Yeah, I think the challenge is, I was actually talking to a mentor of mine, and I think the challenge is making sure that they still have a similar cultural experience. They don't have as much history with the company, so making sure you still find ways to connect them in that way to not just their team, right? Like, get them exposure to other people in the office, doing different things, not just having them on Zooms all day with their first team, so to speak. Yeah. So I think that's been a little bit of a challenge, but finding creative ways to do it has been the fun part, right? So even with our group of interns, we were feeling like, gosh, they're only going to be here for 3 months. They might never, ever, ever get to go into a Service Express office. So how can we create some community for them? So that's been exciting by offering them different classes to take through our learning and development team, offering them to meet with different leaders, just giving them more of that kind of robust picture of the company and more exposure sooner, so that they can feel that culture. The exciting part of it, this is totally self-serving, but we've been able to interview and hire a lot faster because people, one, are getting comfortable with Zoom, and people are good with doing a virtual interview, and maybe it was a little because they had to in the beginning, but now it's becoming such the norm that it's allowed people to not have to worry about driving somewhere or traveling in somewhere, and just being able to get on an interview from home. So that's been awesome for us. It's making time for our leaders have time to do that. And the candidates have time to do that a little bit more readily than they would have if they had to take time off and leave somewhere and drive somewhere or travel somewhere. So that's been great for us. I also think that there's a little bit of humor that is going with it. Like, people are a little bit getting closer quicker. It's been good for us. It's kind of, everyone's kind of seen everybody's lives play out. So it's almost helped make that connection quicker. I can tell you how many, we actually just on my team onboarded 3 new people, and I'm sure my kids were on at least half of our training sessions. So it's been a good level set. Yeah, I know, right? It's been a good level set to be like, it's okay that one, it's okay that you have a personal life. We're excited about that. And 2, kind of making people get a little bit more comfortable quicker, I think, than trying to come in you know, be just their professional self at work. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So transitioning here, our final topic is you
Yeah.
talked about culture. So culture through the chaos, you and I talked about that. And
Yeah.
so what are you seeing or hearing from candidates about how, you know, maybe the companies that they're working for are treating them or reacting during this, you know, during this stay-at-home time during the pandemic and everybody working from home initially, and then, you know, what are we seeing versus maybe some things that we're doing or trying to do during this time?
I think the biggest things, and I'm not saying this is all candidates we've talked to, certainly there's companies, you know, doing really well with their employees, but the biggest things we've seen is a lack of communication. People feel, I think anxiety is already up right now, you know, and so the lack of communication, even though it's not on purpose, maybe they just don't have, I mean, in the beginning, especially, we didn't have any information. So maybe they didn't feel like they had to put anything out there because there wasn't an update. But I think that lack of communication, and especially in the first 4 to 6 weeks, really caused people to sort of feel like they were out there by themselves, not sure. So I think, you know, what Service Express has done, you've done an update every week, and we increased our meeting cadence, right? So we're doing a few more huddles a week just to talk to people, even if there's not a new topic, maybe just a little bit social interaction, especially in the beginning, to be like, how you holding up? You know, I don't have an agenda for this meeting, but just wanted to touch base and see if you're feeling good or if you're struggling with anything, if I can help you with anything. So I think communication has been a really big game changer for us. And I mean, I say this and I mean this totally authentically. People hearing from the CEO, hearing from you, Ron, every week, just you're on video, we're kind of in our homes, and this gives this level of right from your mouth what's going on with the business, what the update is. You've been transparent about with all the leaders, and they've shared that down of like how business is going and where we're at, and we're going to get through this. So I think that has spoken volumes to our employees.
Yeah, I've gotten good feedback on that. You know, for people listening to this, I do a weekly update. I record it on my iPhone sitting at my desk, and I don't do emails though. I don't do email statements. I just really don't like those. I don't like writing emails. I can't get my voice and inflection in there, and I think they can be misread and misinterpreted in so many ways. And so I've said, you know, I'm just more comfortable speaking, and I think letting people see me, hear tone, inflection, all of those things. And we have gotten some good positive feedback around those weekly updates. And I think the lesson for leaders is when there's a lack of communication, people will fill in the blanks themselves. It'll all be different depending on where their perspective is coming from. And for whatever reason, and I'm sure there's psychologists who can answer this question better than I am, but it tends to be a more negative narrative than what is actually happening. And so for us to be able to talk and be authentic and be upfront and transparent, it has really seemed to resonate with our people.
Yeah, that and to the point of making sure, you know, all of your leaders are on the same page too, right? Because to your point, especially if someone's filling in the gaps and there's a different message coming from a different leader, that's another bit of a trend that we've seen. I think it's been, I don't want to say easy, but I think depending on, you know, the company that you're in, the organization you're in, it can be easy to almost give more work to employees during this time because you're either running leaner or you're, you know, trying to do more. I mean, I think of like our marketing departments and our HR departments, you know, all of our departments really, but they've just got more stuff to do, to think about. So I think being purposeful and saying, hey, tell me when you're overwhelmed. You know, you don't need to do it all at once. Like, I know we've got a lot going on and there's a lot of different initiatives that we've got to do now because of the pandemic. So not making the employees feel like, not only are you at home, not only are you juggling maybe kids or juggling, you know, or maybe you're at home alone and that's stressful, you know, let's make sure that we're being conscious of how we're giving workloads out and work out. So that's been another big one. And then I think also giving grace to be able to say, hey, it's exhausting to sit on Zooms from 8 to 5 every day. So like, get up, go do something. You have that flexibility to go take a walk in the middle of the day when you never have been able to before. So I think that's been some really great things that we've tried to empower our employees to do.
Yeah, I think that's some of the feedback that we've heard, the difference of what we tried to do, and not that we're perfect at it, but you know, when I do those recordings, and it's funny because I hear feedback of people playing it at homes and then their spouse overhearing it and listening. And I've had, you know, a number of instances when their spouse is like, man, we're not getting that, or we're just getting overloaded with work. We don't know the why, we don't know where we're going, how we're getting there, what this means or anything, but we're we're got to frantically do the work because we're afraid of losing our job during this time. And I just think that lack of communication is really a culture killer. And I think it's interesting because, it's a point of passion around culture is that people think you have to be on site, and this culture is all fun and games and parties and meals and ping pong and all the stuff. I would say all the stuff we do when we're together, but that's not culture. That's having fun, as part of the environment. But culture is communication and knowing why I'm doing what I'm doing and knowing that what I'm doing matters and the value it brings and being recognized and rewarded for that. Culture can be built over Zoom because of those things.
Yeah.
Where some people think if it's all about parties, then you can't have culture unless you're having the umpteenth Zoom happy hour, and the parties are not culture. They're just fun.
No.
But if that's all you're doing, I always say, if that's all you're doing, you're just goofing around.
Yeah.
Culture is my work matters and I add value. And I know that, and my company knows that.
Yep. And especially during this time, I've seen so many cool teams collaborating that normally don't their jobs don't really intersect, but they're like, how can I help? Or what can I do? We've had a couple instances with even our team just thinking about, hey, let's get involved in that. Or, hey, we should, help the finance group with some work that they're working on because it does affect us, but they could use a little help right now. It's just made I think really awesome collaboration that has helped.
Yeah.
That is our culture, right? How are we working together to get things done?
I think that's the part that even when we're all back together working, that we'll want to keep going forward. It's never been easier to pop into another meeting and meet with people with multiple locations around right there from your desk. And that needs to stay true even as we're all back to work. That we don't have to all travel to go do that. We can be available for people and be in touch. And I've heard our leaders say they've never been more in tune or in touch with their team than during this time. And I think that's one of the positives.
I think the great thing that I would say we're starting to talk about as a company, I hope other companies are starting to talk about, is don't try to go back to business as usual. Business is going to be different. So try to find a way to blend the great things you've learned during this time, and to your point, incorporate them and not be afraid to evolve a little bit in that way, because things are different now. So we've got to roll with that.
Never go backwards. I heard somebody say, man, I'd like to start 2020 all over again. I was like, are you kidding me? Man, never go backwards. We're going forward. We're going through it, man. And and I think that ultimately there'll be good that comes out of it and better practices. And what you said, blend the best of both worlds together, as we go forward. And it's a new frontier, and there's going to be innovation figured out through this, and it's going to make it ultimately better. It's challenging, no question about it right now for a lot of people and for companies, and it's super challenging. And but I think that if we do it right, we should look back at this time and to see how we innovated and we grew and came out of it better. That's the goal. That's what we're focused on, and that's what we focus on at Service Express. We always say, run to the problems, because that's where the opportunities lie.